Good morning. It's Wednesday, hump day, getting over the hump today, making it through the week. Kind of helps make it through the week whenever it's 65 degrees outside too, doesn't it? So we are thrilled to have it this warm. So Susan, good to see you on here this morning, and I hope, man, there comes some more that are the gluttons for punishment as they get on here, and Nelson and Miss Carol, glad you're here. Oh, neighbor, hello neighbor. Miss Joyce, glad you're on here. Faye is our neighbor, if you don't know that. So, go Maria. So, anyway, we will move forward and just looking at some things today to encourage each other and to just stay the course. And so our dog just went barreling outside looking for the squirrel that's hiding up in the tree. And I always got to make some kind of distraction while I'm on here. So, but anyway, good to see each one of you on here today. So I started off this morning and I read in Isaiah 48 in one of the devotionals that I have, and the verse was in Isaiah 48, and it was verse 10. And it says, "Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction." And so that was the beginning thoughts of today. So just thought I would start with that this morning, and I want to go back though, and it seemed like there was something I needed to share with you before we did get started too much, but anyway, Susan's having issues. I don't know. I think it's on your side this time, Susan. I'm actually behaving myself today, and it seems to be working here. So, but anyway, I want to go back here in chapter 48, and I want us to read verse 1. First of all, it says, "Hear ye this, O house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel, and are come forth out of the waters of Judah, which swear by the name of the Lord, and make mention of the God of Israel." Now, that sounds pretty good, right? But then it says, and make mention of the God of Israel, but not in truth, nor in righteousness. And, I think that, and then he goes on further, and we'll get into the furnace of affliction in a moment, because I think that obviously God didn't care for the way that Israel and Judah were behaving, the divided tribes, divided nation, but didn't appreciate what they were doing. They were claiming to be God's chosen, but they sure weren't acting it, and they were not in truth nor in righteousness. And so because of that, he says in verse 9, "For my name's sake will I defer mine anger, and for my praise will I refrain for thee, that I cut thee not off. Behold, I have refined thee, but not with silver. I have chosen thee in the furnace of affliction. For my own sake, even for my own sake, will I do it. For how should my name be polluted? And I will not give my glory unto another. Hearken unto me, O Jacob and Israel, my called. I am he. I am the first. I am also the last. Mine hand also hath laid the foundation of the earth, and my right hand hath spanned the heavens. When I call unto them, they stand up together. All ye assemble yourselves and hear. Which among them hath declared these things? The Lord hath loved him. He will do his pleasure on Babylon, and his arm shall be on the Chaldeans. I, even I, have spoken. Yea, I have called him. I have brought him. He shall make his way prosperous." And so here we see that God said, "I'm not going to share my glory with anyone." And he did that with Israel and Judah, and took them into captivity. And here he is. He's been warning them of this and telling them, look, this is what's going to happen. So you need to repent and get things right. Well, the principle's still there for us today. And here, as he is not going to share his glory, he's not going to share his glory in this day and age and generation either. And so we need to understand that. And it seems like that we can be in what we could all call our own furnace of affliction right now. But the encouraging thing about that is that God always took care of the remnant, and God always takes care of the believers. And does it mean that everything will be easy? No, it doesn't. And doesn't mean that things will always be soft and easy. We know that Daniel, you look at Daniel and you think about his life when he got ripped out of Jerusalem and taken into Babylon, but he remained godly, and he remained faithful, and God blessed him. We know Joseph didn't have it always easy in his life, but God still blessed him and used him, and God can do the same thing with us. And so we need to trust him and walk with him. And even when we're in our own furnace of affliction, then we know that God is using that to draw us closer to him. And so let's trust him. And then I read over in Psalm, and I know I've used this one many times, but Psalm 46, and I kind of say that Psalm 46 is a psalm of victory for us, and definitely a psalm that can use to calm the heart and calm the one that's anxious, and calm the one that is just fretting about things. And so it tells us here in Psalm 46, it says, God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. I mean, he is exceeding what we need for help. I mean, his abundance and his force, the muchness of who he is at our disposal as a child of God. And he's a very present help in trouble. There are times when we can get pretty anxious, and there are times when we're challenged because of the craziness of the world and all of the crazy things that are going on around us, and the challenges that are going on around us in our world. And we need to, with the anxiety that's brought on, we need to, first thing is run to him. And he is our refuge. He is our strength. He's a very present help in trouble. And therefore will not we fear, though the earth be removed, and though the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with the swelling thereof. I mean, he goes on and on. And he says, God is in the midst of her, and she shall not be moved. God shall help her, and that right early. The heathen raged, the kingdoms were moved. He uttered his voice, the earth melted. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. Come, behold the works of the Lord, what desolations he hath made in the earth. He maketh wars to cease unto the end of the earth. He breaketh the bow, and cutteth the spear in sunder. He burneth the chariot in the fire. And then the verse that we always go to, be still and know that I am God. I will be exalted among the heathen. I will be exalted in the earth. The Lord of hosts is with us. The God of Jacob is our refuge. I mean, how many times over this past year have we been in a psalm where God has encouraged us in this crazy time? And do you not think that he's trying to show us and tell us that, Joel, you're right. He is always with us during our afflictions. Always. And there are times where we just need to be still and know that he's God. We need to know that he's got this under control, that he is truly the one that has things in hand. And so it's just always a good reminder, and I'm so grateful for the Psalms. I am truly grateful for what God gives us here in just to trust him, to walk with him, to continue to be obedient to him, and know that he's got all things under control, and be still and know that I'm God. Now, that's not always easy, is it? But that is exactly what he wants us to do. And so, anyway, so that was some of the things that I had. But then I'm going to end up here. The last thing is over in Mark. And so we were in Mark chapter, I was in Mark chapter 11 today. I want to share some things, and that is the one thing that I wanted to remind you, those that are in our church family. We have the Bill and Dee Simone's funeral on Friday, and just a reminder, if you can bring a side or dessert for that, that would be great. And if a few of you could be there to help out, though, that would be good too, because family. Look, we have families all over our community. They're going through afflictions too, and it's an opportunity to show people what a church family is about. And so if you can help with that, would appreciate it. But anyway, let's get back to Mark and chapter 11, and might deal with the whole chapter. We'll just see. But this is where, remember yesterday, Jesus said, hey, we're going to go to Jerusalem. And they followed him, and they were afraid. Well, they were afraid because they knew that people hated them there. They knew that they hated, that they hated Jesus, and they were going to be a part of this, right? And so, but they still followed him. Well, now we see that they come in, and as they're coming into Jerusalem, we see them laying the palm leaves down, and they're laying their coats down, and they're praising him. And you see the problem with these guys in Jerusalem, they thought that Jesus was coming as a king, and he did, but it wasn't the kind of king that they're talking about. They thought that he was going to free them from the Roman Empire, and that he was going to be a physical king at that time, and so they're treating him like a king, and he didn't stop them from treating him like a king, because he is. I mean, he's the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords. And as a matter of fact, I mean, in one of the other Gospels here, it's recorded that the Pharisees and the religious, came to him and said, hey, you need to quit taking all this glory and taking all this worship, acting like you're a king. And he said, if these people will not worship me, then the very rocks will cry out. How powerful is our God. And so here we see that's how this starts out. So he comes into Jerusalem and he rides on a donkey on a foal, and so in a humble way, even they treat him as a king, he's still riding on a foal, and tells us of the humility of our Savior, and as a reminder of the humility that we ought to have in this life. And don't walk around thinking that you're special and that you're, I don't know, that you're better than anyone or whatever. You need to walk humbly and know that all of us rely on the grace of God. Well, then it says on the morrow, when they were come from Bethany, he was hungry. So he came into Jerusalem, and then at the end of the day, he went back to Bethany, and that's where he stays. Mary, Martha, Lazarus. I mean, that's the place where he's at, right? And so that close-knit family that he had. How special is that? You ever thought of that too? That was a place where Jesus would come and stay. And I don't know. I just think that's pretty special. And he just was at home there. And let's make sure that the Holy Spirit is at home with us right now too, right? Anyway, the next day, he says he was hungry, seeing a fig tree afar off, having leaves, he came. Haply he might find anything thereon. We came to it, he found nothing but leaves, for the time of figs was not yet. So it's full of leaves, but and it should have been full of buds, showing that there was going to be lots of figs on it, but a lot of leaves, but there wasn't any buds on it. And Jesus answered and said unto it, no man eat fruit of thee hereafter forever. And his disciples heard it. Now, and then, so he does this, and we're going to see the application of that still today, because then it shows us that he goes into the temple. And they come to Jerusalem, and Jesus went into the temple and began to cast out them that sold and bought in the temple, and overthrew the tables of the money changers and the seats of them that sold doves, and would not suffer that any man should carry any vessel through the temple. And he taught, saying unto them, Is it not written, My house shall be called of all nations the house of prayer? But you've made it a den of thieves. And the scribes and chief priests heard it, and sought how they might destroy him. For they feared him, because all the people was astonished at his doctrine. When evening was come, he went out of the city. And so here, he goes in here, and this is a place where they ought to be worshiping. And where they had set up, the money changers had set up, that they had set up in the, what's it called? It's the temple court for the Gentiles. And so, remember, even Gentiles that became Jews were only allowed into the temple of the court of the temple. And so that's where they allowed to go. Well, these guys, the Jews, came in and they set up these tables where they had made it official that you could only use temple currency. And so you had to give of your offerings and stuff. It had to be a temple currency. And guess who had control of that? And so now we have these characters they have the temple currency. And so what they would do is the exchange rate was ripping people off. And so you would bring your money and you'd have to buy the temple currency and they would charge you an inflated price for it. I mean, does that not sound like our government today, right? And so the stinkers that they were. And then not only that, but many of these people traveled for days and days and days to get there. And so they would not bring their sacrifice. They would purchase one when they got there. So they would go to purchase their offering, their sacrificial animal. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, that animal was worth a whole lot more than what it was really worth. And so they made all kinds of money doing that. And that was the temple. And then on top of that, they had all of these things set up in the court where those that were genuine and those that brought their own animals and whatever, and they come in there to truly worship and to truly be what God wanted them to be, they couldn't even get around. They were hindered in their worship. And you know what this represents? I think it's far worse than a bank system, Carol and Nelson. I think this represents the churches of the day that have become country clubs and that have become something that wants to be pleasing to society and has absolutely nothing to do with worship. And they're dead. I mean, they're just they might have some big fancy building, but there is no power of God on the church and the community outreach and the gospel, and all they're doing is it's all just about money, and it's all about social standing, and it's all about just being impressive to those around. And the reason I say that is because of the fig. Remember the fig? Well, and now it says that he chases them all out of there because he's not happy with that. Look, there are churches today that all they are is a social club, or there are churches today that are dying and they need to die. I mean, they're just worthless in what they've become, and let's make sure we're not that. Let's make sure our church isn't that. Let's make sure that we as believers aren't that. And then it says, and in the morning as they passed by, they saw the fig tree dried up from the roots. Yeah. Oh, I think that's powerful, isn't it? And Jesus answering said to them, have faith in God. Guys, just have faith in God. Be obedient to Him. Follow Him. Walk with Him. Be what it is that He wants you to be. Give up these things that that you think are so important and what society tells you is important and that's what we need to have to be important in society. Quit worrying about any of that and just follow me. Worship me. And as you follow me and you follow me in faith, then believe that I can do whatever. And that's what he says here. He says, go on. He says, you say unto this mountain, be thou removed, and be thou cast into the sea, and shall not doubt in his heart, but shall believe that those things which he says shall come to pass. He shall have whatsoever he saith. I mean, that's God. That's the one. And so, do we believe that God's got things under control? Yeah, we do. Do we worship him? Yes. Do we allow the government to dictate to us how we worship? No. Do we allow the world to dictate to us how we worship? No, we don't. Do we worry about the money? No. We give as God shows us that we need to be giving. Do we fall in love with the things of this world? No, we don't. Do we use what we have in this world to make an eternal impact on others? Yes, we do. And we just live our lives trusting him. And we don't share God's glory. You're right. You know, a successful church is one that doesn't steal God's glory. It's all about God, everything. And so we look to him and we serve him. And then I find this interesting in all of this. One thing that can hinder us is bitterness. And don't let bitterness creep into your life. Whatever, if it's been someone that mistreated you, if it's just regret in your life and maybe God has chastised you and you're angry at God for that, or I don't know, but look what he says. And when you stand praying, forgive. If you have aught against any, that your Father also which is in heaven may forgive you your trespasses. But if you do not forgive, neither will your Father which is in heaven forgive your trespasses. You'll never be right with God and have the true blessings of God until you're able to get rid of the bitterness in your heart and to learn to forgive. And I don't know. You know, I can try to define forgiveness and I've tried to do that and I try to explain it, and I don't know. I guess I don't know exactly how, but I know that when I sin, I'm convicted, and I go to God and I acknowledge it to God. Lord, this is sin, and I'm sorry that I did it, and I don't want to do it anymore. And you turn your back on it and you walk away from it, and I know that God forgives me, and somehow I have to figure out how to do that very same thing to those who are adamantly against me. When I think of this government and I think of the wickedness of this government and how vile it is and how vicious it can be, and all I want is judgment on them. But you know, Moses saw all kinds of junk. And every time God said, I'm going to judge them, he fell on his knees and prayed and sought God to stop and not do this. And you know, I don't know. I mean, it's a difficult thing, but it is what God wants us to do. And so let's just make sure we have a heart that's right with God, and let's be used of God today. And, you know, it's hump day, you know, it's middle of the week. The challenges have been rough already this week. And now here we are, you know, what's going to come the rest of the week? I don't know, but I do know that whether it's a furnace of affliction or whether it's a hand of blessings upon us, that I know that God's got it, and we just need to look to him and walk right with him and have him to help us. And you know what? I think of that forgiveness and think of what a hump that could be. And I find it interesting that he says this right after he says, follow me in faith and trust me. And if you really trust me and you believe this, then whatever it is and however big it might be, God's able to take it out of your life. And trust him. Trust him. And so you're right. We just need to turn it over to God and give it to him and walk refreshed in our lives and truly walk refreshed in just being a child of God who's forgiven and thankful for that, you know. And so let's just get things going on today. Anyway, God bless you guys, and have a good day today. And those that are in the area, we have prayer and Bible study, 7 o'clock tonight. Love to see you. God bless.